It's 2 in the morning. You're lying in bed, exhausted, ready to collapse into sleep. But your brain? Your brain has other plans, because somewhere in the back of your mind, there's a tiny voice screaming about that email you didn't send, that drawer you didn't close, that one item left unchecked on your to-do list. It doesn't matter that it would take 30 seconds to finish. It doesn't matter that it's completely insignificant. Your brain has decided that until you deal with it, sleep is off the table. And here's the twisted part. The smaller and more trivial the task, the louder that voice gets. This isn't you being dramatic. This isn't procrastination or anxiety. This is a psychological glitch hardwired into your brain, and it's called the Zeigarnik Effect. It's the reason unfinished tasks haunt you like ghosts. It's why cliffhangers make you binge entire seasons at 3 a.m., and it's why your brain treats incomplete work like an open wound that refuses to heal. Today, we're breaking down exactly how this mental trap works, why evolution cursed you with it, and most importantly, how you can hack it to finally get some peace. I'm Willow. Let's dive into the unfinished business that your brain refuses to let go. Number 8. Your brain hates unfinished business more than anything else in the universe. Here's why. When you start a task, your brain opens what psychologists call a cognitive loop. Think of it like opening a browser tab. That tab stays active, quietly draining mental energy in the background, until you either complete the task or consciously decide to abandon it. But here's the glitch. Your brain doesn't treat all tasks equally. A massive project. Your brain can compartmentalize it, break it into chunks, file it away. But a tiny, trivial task you started and didn't finish, that stays front and center, flashing like a neon sign. It's why you can forget about a huge work deadline, but obsess over whether you locked the car. The Zeigarnik Effect, named after psychologist Bloomer Zeigarnik in the 1920s, discovered that people remember incomplete tasks up to twice as well as completed ones. Your brain literally prioritizes the unfinished, and it's not trying to torture you. In evolutionary terms, this was useful. Unfinished tasks in the wild meant unfinished survival, a half-built shelter, an unfinished hunt. These weren't minor inconveniences. They were life or death loose ends. So your brain evolved to nag you until closure happened. The problem? Modern life is nothing but open loops. Number 7. This is why Netflix owns your soul. Every streaming platform, every TV show, every serialized story exploits the Zeigarnik Effect like a weapon. Cliffhangers aren't just dramatic, they're psychological traps. When a show ends mid-tension, your brain registers it as an incomplete task. The story loop is open, the tension is unresolved, and your brain will not rest until it gets closure. That's why just one more episode turns into 5. That's why you stay up until 4 a.m., even though you have work in 5 hours. It's not weak willpower, it's your brain desperately trying to close the loop. And here's the genius part. The creators know this. They engineer episodes to end at maximum tension. They design story arcs to leave questions unanswered. They exploit your biological need for completion. And it works every single time. Because the Zeigarnik Effect doesn't care about logic. It doesn't care that it's fictional. It just knows something is unfinished, and it will make you miserable until you fix it. This is the same reason you can't stop reading a thriller once the mystery starts. The same reason you refresh your email obsessively waiting for one specific reply. Your brain treats every open narrative, every unanswered question, every unfinished interaction as a task that must be resolved. Number 6. Here's where it gets truly bizarre. Writing a to-do list should help, right? Wrong. It makes the Zeigarnik Effect worse. When you write down tasks, you're not offloading them from your brain. You're reinforcing the open loops. You're literally creating a monument to everything you haven't finished. And your brain sees that list and panics. Because now it's not just one unfinished task, it's 12, 20, 50. Each one is an open tab draining your mental battery. Studies show that people with long to-do lists report higher stress and lower productivity, not because they have more work, but because they've created more cognitive debt. And here's the kicker. Crossing off a task feels amazing because your brain finally gets to close that loop. That tiny hit of dopamine. That's your brain celebrating closure. But if your list keeps growing faster than you can complete it, you're stuck in an endless cycle of cognitive overload. The solution isn't to stop making lists. It's to understand that every incomplete item is a psychological weight. So the trick? Limit your daily list to 3 high-priority items. Anything else goes on a someday list your brain doesn't have to track. Because the Zeigarnik Effect only activates when your brain believes the task is urgent and active. Number 5. This is why that embarrassing thing you said 7 years ago still keeps you up at night. Social interactions create some of the most powerful open loops in your brain. When a conversation ends awkwardly, when you don't get closure in a relationship, when someone ghosts you mid-text, your brain treats it like an unfinished task because from an evolutionary perspective, unresolved social tension was dangerous. A tribe member angry at you, that's a survival threat. An unclear social hierarchy, that's instability. So your brain evolved to obsess over social loose ends until they're resolved. The problem is, most modern social interactions don't get clean closure. You say something weird at a party and never follow up. Someone leaves your message unread. A friendship fades without a real ending. And your brain replays these moments on loop, trying to solve the unsolvable, trying to close a loop that's already gone. This is why apologies feel so good, even years later. Why closure conversations can heal old wounds. Your brain isn't being petty. It's just trying to file away the unfinished emotional business. And until it does, that cringe-worthy moment will live rent-free in your head, resurfacing at the worst possible times. Because the Zeigarnik Effect doesn't distinguish between a forgotten task and an unfinished social script. Number 4. The Zeigarnik Effect doesn't just remind you of unfinished tasks, it actively makes procrastination worse. Here's the vicious cycle. You avoid starting a task because it feels overwhelming, but the moment you even think about it, your brain opens a cognitive loop. Now you're stuck in the worst possible position. The task isn't started, but the loop is already open. So you get all the mental drain of an unfinished task without any progress. And because your brain hates this state, it cranks up the anxiety, which makes you avoid the task even more, which keeps the loop open longer, which increases the anxiety. You see the trap? The only way out is action, even the tiniest step forward. Because here's the secret. The Zeigarnik Effect doesn't care about completion. It cares about progress. Starting a task, even for 2 minutes, signals to your brain that the loop is being addressed. The anxiety drops, the mental noise quiets. This is why the 2-minute rule works so well. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Not because it's urgent, but because leaving it undone creates a cognitive cost that far outweighs the effort. And for bigger tasks? Start with the smallest possible action. Write 1 sentence, send 1 email. Your brain will relax once it knows the loop is active. Number 3. Here's the beautiful irony. The Zeigarnik Effect makes you remember unfinished tasks better than completed ones, which means you can actually use interruptions to boost memory and learning. Studies show that if you pause while studying, while working on a creative project, or while solving a problem, your brain keeps processing it in the background. That open loop becomes a memory anchor. This is why taking breaks makes you smarter. Why sleeping on it works. Why stepping away from a problem often leads to sudden breakthroughs. Your brain doesn't stop working just because you do. The open loop keeps running. And when you return, you come back sharper, with fresh perspectives, because your unconscious mind spent that whole break trying to close the loop. Teachers have known this for decades. The best lessons end with a question, not an answer. The best presentations leave one idea unresolved. Because if you close every loop, the audience forgets. But leave one thing open, they'll think about it for days. So if you want to remember something, don't finish it in one sitting. Interrupt yourself strategically. leave it incomplete. Let the Zeigarnik Effect do the heavy lifting. Your brain will obsess over it until it's resolved, and in doing so, it'll burn that information deeper into your memory than any amount of cramming ever could. Number 2, if the Zeigarnik Effect is the problem, closure is the solution. But most people don't understand how powerful intentional closure really is. Completing a task isn't just about getting it done. It's about signaling to your brain that the loop is closed, the threat is gone, the tension is resolved. And when that happens, you get a neurochemical reward. Dopamine floods your system, your stress drops, your focus sharpens. This is why people become addicted to finishing things. Why checking off boxes feels so satisfying. Why inbox zero is a lifestyle for some. They're not just organizing, they're feeding their brain the closure it craves. And you can hack this. If you can't finish a big task, break it into smaller closures. Finish one section, finish one milestone, close one micro loop. Each tiny completion gives your brain relief and momentum. And here's the advanced move. Create fake closure. If you're stuck on something that you can't control, like waiting for someone's reply, give yourself a mental deadline and move on. Tell your brain, I've done my part. The loop is closed on my end. It's not perfect, but it works. Because the Zeigarnik Effect runs on perception, not reality. If you convince your brain the task is resolved, the mental noise stops. And finally, number 1, here's the ultimate hack, and it's almost embarrassingly simple. If a task takes less than 1 minute, do it the second you think of it. Not later, not eventually, right now. Because the mental cost of tracking that task, of keeping that cognitive loop open, is far greater than the 60 seconds it would take to just finish it. This is the real reason successful people seem so organized. It's not discipline, it's math. They've realized that leaving tiny tasks undone creates exponential mental drag. So they ruthlessly close small loops immediately. Email that takes 30 seconds to reply to? Done. Dish that takes 20 seconds to rinse? Done. Door that takes 5 seconds to lock? Done. And the result? Their minds are free. They're not carrying around dozens of invisible burdens. They're not being haunted by trivial ghosts. They've minimized their cognitive debt, which means they have more mental energy for the things that actually matter. This isn't about being productive. It's about being peaceful. Because every open loop is a tiny source of stress. And when you close them as fast as they appear, you reclaim your mental space. You stop being controlled by the Zeigarnik Effect, and you finally get to rest. So here's what we know. Your brain is wired to obsess over unfinished tasks. It doesn't matter how small they are. It doesn't matter how irrational it seems. The Zeigarnik Effect is a biological glitch that treats every open loop like a survival threat. And modern life? Modern life is an endless flood of open loops. Emails, texts, notifications, half-watched shows, incomplete projects, unresolved conversations. Your brain is drowning in unfinished business, and it's screaming for closure. But now you know the rules. You know why cliffhangers control you, why to-do lists can backfire, why that awkward moment won't leave you alone. And most importantly, you know how to fight back. Close the small loops immediately. Use interruptions to boost memory. Create intentional closure. Stop letting your brain hold unfinished tasks hostage, because the secret to peace isn't doing more. It's finishing what you start. So tonight, before you go to bed, close one loop. Just one. Finish that email, put away that dish, lock that door, and notice how much lighter you feel. That's not magic. That's your brain finally getting the closure it's been begging for. I'm Willow, and until next time, finish what you start before your brain finishes you, and mind yourself. I'll see you in the next one.